Tonight, settle into a quiet lighthouse at the edge of dark water. We are not going to hurry toward a storm, or follow a ship in trouble, or turn the tower into a ghost story. We are simply going to walk through the ordinary work of a light station, slowly and carefully, as evening gathers around it. The sea is already darkening, the last color is leaving the water. The rocks below the headland are becoming simple shapes, and the path through the salt grass is fading from brown and green into a soft gray line. Ahead of us is a lighthouse tower and a keeper's dwelling. The tower may be stone, brick, or painted masonry. The dwelling may be attached to it, or it may stand a little apart, with its own door, its own kitchen, and its own small windows looking out toward the sea. Nothing about it needs to be grand. The value of the place is not in ornament. The value is in being known, being kept, and being reliable. A lighthouse was not only a tower with a bright top, it was a working system. The lamp made the light, the lens organized it, the tower lifted it, the keeper kept it trustworthy. That trust mattered because ships used the light as an aid to navigation. A light could warn a vessel away from rocks, reefs, shoals, sandbars, or a hard headland where water broke unevenly in the dark. It could also help a ship find the mouth of a harbor, the beginning of a channel, or a known place on a difficult coast. The light did not steer the ship by itself. It did not replace the chart, the compass, the sounding line, the knowledge of wind and tide, or the judgment of the people on board. It was one careful signal among many, but on a dark coast, one reliable signal could matter very much. Imagine a mariner standing on a vessel offshore, looking toward land. The coast may be invisible, except for a few points of light. One light is fixed, steady in one place. Another may flash at intervals. Another may show white in one direction and red in another, marking a sector of safer or more dangerous water. The mariner compares what is seen with what is known. The timing, color, range, and position help identify which light it is. This identifying pattern is called the character of the light. It sounds almost poetic, but it is practical. A light's character could help a vessel know whether it was seeing the right tower, the wrong tower, the entrance to a harbor, or a warning near a hazard. Brightness alone was not enough. A light also needed to be recognizable. So tonight, as we enter the station, we can think of the lighthouse not as an isolated monument, but as a quiet part of a larger map. The chart, the coastline, the buoy, the beacon, the fog signal, the lantern glass, the keeper's logbook, and the lamp flame all belong to the same practical world. The keeper's world begins before the lamp is lit. Outside, the weather is calm. There is no dramatic gale. The sea moves in long, even breaths below the rocks. Water folds over itself and withdraws. The sound is steady enough that the mind can stop measuring it. The path from the dwelling to the tower has been walked so many times that the keeper knows every dip in it. There may be a low fence, a gate, a store shed, a small coal house, an oil room, or a path down toward a landing place if supplies arrive by boat. There may be a garden where wind has bent the plants in one direction. There may be a cistern, a pump, a wash line, or a little outbuilding that is more useful than beautiful. The keeper's dwelling is a house because people have to live there, but it is also a part of the apparatus. The kitchen table can become a place for the logbook. A shelf can hold spare cloths. A corner can hold boots, coats, and tools. The clock matters because sunset and sunrise matter. The window matters because weather matters. The door matters because it leads to the tower. Inside the house, the evening has the plain feeling of a routine beginning. A meal may be finished. A mug may be set aside. A lamp may burn low on the table. The room may smell of tea, wool, damp wood, salt air, and the faint mineral smell of stored fuel. At some stations, a family might be nearby speaking quietly or already preparing for sleep. At others, an assistant keeper might be checking his own list of tasks. At an isolated station, there may be only the keeper, the house, the tower, and the sea. We should be careful not to make one lighthouse stand for all lighthouses. Routines varied by country, period, coast, technology, and station. Some lights used oil, some later used kerosene, gas, or electricity. Some were served by one keeper, some by principal and assistant keepers, and some by several people. Some stations sat close to a settlement, others stood on lonely points or offshore rocks, where relief and supplies could be difficult. But the old rhythm is clear enough. The evening comes, the station is prepared, the light is shown, the night is watched. The morning arrives, the apparatus is cleaned and made ready again. On the table, the logbook waits. It may not look important at first. It is only a book, perhaps with ruled pages, plain ink, and repeated entries. Yet it is one of the lighthouse's quiet instruments. It lets the station remember. It holds weather, time, repairs, supplies, observations, and the condition of the light. It turns a private night of work into a record that can be understood later. Near the logbook are cloths, clean cloths for glass, different cloths for metal, a tool small enough to trim a wick, perhaps spare wick material carefully stored, perhaps a lamp chimney that must be handled with care, perhaps a small oil can polished by use, with marks where many hands have lifted it before. The keeper checks what has already been checked. This is not wasted effort. Repetition is a form of safety. A forgotten detail may be small at the table and large at sea. Fuel is considered first. In different periods, lighthouse lamps use different fuels. Earlier systems might use oil, including whale oil in some places and periods. Later lamps might use mineral oil, kerosene, gas systems, or electric power. We do not need to choose one fuel as universal. The important idea is that every system had a source of light, and every source had its own kind of care. For a flame lamp, fuel had to reach the wick. Air had to feed the flame. The wick had to be trimmed. Glass had to remain clear. If the flame smoked, soot could gather on glass and dim the light. If the oil supply was neglected, the light could fail. If the chimney was dirty, the lens could not do its work properly. The lighthouse was built to send light outward, but the keeper had to keep a clear path for that light. This is where the word wiki comes from in some lighthouse history. Keepers who tended the wick and kept the flame in order were associated with that small but essential act. The nickname is gentle, almost domestic, but the work behind it was serious. A badly trimmed wick could smoke. Smoke could darken the lamp glass. Darkened glass could reduce the beam. A reduced beam could change what a mariner saw. The keeper looks toward the window. The day is almost gone. The exact time of lighting matters. Historical instructions could be direct about it. Lamps were to be lit at sunset and kept burning bright and clear until sunrise. In poor daytime visibility, the light might also be needed. The rule was simple because the need was simple. A ship could not wait for the keeper to feel ready. The clock is checked again. The light is still unlit. The keeper gathers what is needed for the climb. The objects are not dramatic. A cloth, a small tool, perhaps fuel, perhaps a record of the watch. The body remembers the weight before the mind thinks about it. A lighthouse keeper climbed the same stairs again and again, not once for a picture, but through years of weather and duty. The tower door may be thick. It may open into a cool interior where the air changes at once. Stone walls hold the day's chill. Ironwork gives off a faint metallic smell. A narrow stair curves upward. Small windows or openings admit the last light in pale strips. Inside a tower, sound behaves differently. A footstep on an iron tread rings upward and is answered by the wall. A boot on stone makes a shorter sound. A hand on a rail can be heard clearly. A tool in a pocket shifts. Outside, the sea is broad. Inside, every sound is close. The stairs make the lighthouse physical. From below, the lantern room may seem like an idea, a shining room high in the air. But for the keeper, it is reached by muscle, breath, balance, and habit. Each turn brings the same wall and the same rail. Each landing offers a small pause. The climb is ordinary, and because it is ordinary, it becomes part of the station's discipline. If the keeper carries oil, the climb is harder. Some historical accounts describe keepers carrying fuel up many steps before electricity changed the work. The exact amount depended on the station, but the principle remains. Light at the top required effort from below. The tower lifted the beam for mariners, and that meant the keeper had to lift supplies and attention into the air as well. Halfway up, a small window may show the water. The view is not wide for long. It appears, moves past, and disappears behind the inner curve of the wall. The horizon is a dark line. The sky above it is dim. The keeper does not stop to admire it for too long. The schedule is gentle but firm. Higher in the tower, the air may move more. Wind presses around the upper windows and seams. The sound of the sea becomes less direct, as if heard through stone and height. The stair narrows the world to hand, foot, rail, wall, and breath. Below the lantern room, there may be a watch room or service room. It is a practical place, close to the light but not inside the glass. There may be a clock, a chair, the logbook, a small table, and tools. In some historical instructions, beds or sofas were not allowed in the watchroom or lantern. The reason is easy to understand. A watchroom was for watching, not for settling into sleep. Comfort had to stop before negligence began. The keeper may set something down here before going higher. The lantern room is above. When the keeper enters it, the station's purpose becomes visible all at once. The lamp stands near the center. Around it, or before it, is the optical system that gathers and directs the light. In some earlier lighthouses, reflectors help throw light outward. In many later and more powerful stations, the Fresnel lens became the remarkable glass heart of the tower. The Fresnel lens is worth looking at slowly. It is not ordinary window glass. A window mostly lets light pass through. It may keep out wind and rain, but it does not organize the beam in any careful way. It is also not simply one huge, thick magnifying glass. A giant solid lens would be heavy, difficult to make, and wasteful. Instead, the Fresnel design divides the lens into rings and prisms. The glass pieces are shaped so they bend the light and send more of it outward where it is useful. Some parts of the lens may look like circular steps around a central bullseye. Some prisms may stand above or below the central belt, catching light that would otherwise travel upward or downward and redirecting it toward the horizon. The lens is not making light from nothing. The lamp or bulb makes the light. The idea can be kept very plain. A small flame or lamp sends light in many directions. Without help, much of that light goes where no ship can use it. The lens gathers, bends, and concentrates more of the light into a beam. The beam travels out through the lantern glass, across darkness, and toward the sea. The largest Fresnel lenses could be enormous and complex. made from many pieces of carefully shaped glass held in metal frames. Lighthouse lenses were built in orders, with smaller orders for less powerful lights and large first-order lenses for major coastal stations. A first-order lens could contain more than 1,000 prisms. Yet the listener does not need to memorize numbers. The useful picture is enough. Rings of glass, a central lamp, brass framing, and light gathered into direction. Before the lamp is lit, the lens may already catch the last daylight. It reflects the keeper's movement in broken pieces. It shows curved lines, pale edges, and faint colors. The glass is both delicate and practical. It can look like art, but it was built to work. The lantern panes around the room matter too. They are different from the Fresnel lens, but part of the same path. A clear lens means little if the outer panes are coated in salt, soot, or moisture. Salt air is patient. It dries into a film. Smoke darkens surfaces. Damp makes metal and glass require attention. The keeper's cloths, polishing, and cleaning are not decorations. They are part of keeping the light visible. If the lamp has a glass chimney, it is inspected. A chimney can help manage draft and flame. It also must remain clean. With a flame, there is always the possibility of smoke. A clean, even flame is not only more pleasant to look at, it is more useful. The wick, if there is one, is checked with the practical concentration of a person who knows small things matter. The edge should be even. A ragged wick can make a ragged flame. A ragged flame can smoke. Soot can dim the glass. The line from a tiny burnt edge to a vessel offshore is long, but it is real. The keeper may check the mechanism that turns the optic, if this station uses a rotating apparatus. Not all lighthouses rotated. Some showed a fixed light. Some flashed. Some used colored sectors. But where a lens revolved, the turning mechanism might use clockwork and weights, and it had to be wound and watched. A beam that should return at regular intervals could not be allowed to drift out of time. This is where the practical beauty of the lighthouse appears. It is beautiful because every part has a reason. The lamp made the light. The lens organized it. The tower lifted it. The keeper kept it trustworthy. Outside, the last line of sunset is nearly gone. The water has become dark enough that the lamp must begin its work. Lighting the lamp is not a theatrical moment for the keeper. It is a duty performed carefully. But in the room itself, the change is profound. First there is a small glow, then the flame steadies, then the glass chimney warms, then the lens takes the light and multiplies it into reflections. The lantern room, a moment ago dim and cold, becomes full of amber fragments. Brass takes on a soft shine. The keeper's hand moves in the glass in several places at once. Outside the panes, the sea disappears into darkness, and then the beam begins to find it. If the light is fixed, the glow settles into a steady presence. If the apparatus rotates, the beam moves with its measured return. If the light flashes, the pattern begins its repetition. The station is no longer only a building. It is speaking in the language expected of it. A mariner offshore may see it later as a point, a flash, a sweep, or a colored sector. From the lantern room, the keeper sees the source. The first entry of the night may be made in the log. Time of lighting, weather, wind, visibility, sea condition, condition of the lamp, any repair or irregularity. The sentences may be plain. The handwriting may be practical. The page may contain no drama at all. That plainness is a kind of success. The keeper watches the flame for a while after lighting. It must not burn too low. It must not burn too high. It must not smoke. If the station has an oil lamp, the fuel feed must be right. If the station has later equipment, the checks differ, but the habit remains. The light is not trusted merely because it is on. It is trusted because someone confirms it is working as it should. Outside, the evening has completed its turn into night. The keeper's house below is now a smaller shape. One window may glow. Beyond it, the land recedes. The tower is the clearest thing in the darkness, because it was designed to be. The word watch does not mean doing nothing. It means attention over time. Most of the night may be calm. The keeper may not be repairing a broken mechanism or answering an emergency, but the responsibility continues minute by minute. A reliable light is not a single act at sunset. It is a condition maintained until sunrise. In some systems, the principal keeper and assistant keeper divided the night. One kept watch for a period, then handed over to another. In historical instructions, the keeper ending a watch might trim the lamps and leave them in good order before the next keeper took over. This matters because a handoff is not merely a change of person. It is the continuity of the light. The clock moves slowly. The flame breathes in its chimney. The lens sends the light outward. The tower holds its height. The keeper remains awake. After a time, the wick may need attention. Some historical instructions required trimming every 3 hours, though the exact routine varied. The keeper approaches the lamp with small tools and practiced care. The burnt part of the wick is shaped or cut away so the flame can burn clearly. The motion is not dramatic, it is exact. Trim too little, and the flame may smoke. Trim poorly, and the flame may become uneven. Disturb the lamp carelessly, and the light may fail when it should be steady. So the keeper moves in a measured way. The hand knows the tool. The eye studies the flame. The ear hears the tower. The glass chimney is checked again. The lens is observed. The outer panes are noticed. The keeper may walk slowly around the lantern, looking at the apparatus from more than one angle. It is easier to catch a small fault before it becomes a large one. Far away, a vessel may be moving along the coast. Its deck may be damp. Its compass may be checked. Its course may be compared with the chart. Someone on board may note the lighthouse, not with excitement, but with relief. It is where it should be. It has the expected character. It confirms the shape of the coast. The keeper will probably never know about that exact glance from the vessel. Most of the people helped by a lighthouse never met the person who kept it. That is part of the quietness of the work. It is service across distance. Below the lantern, the watchroom waits. The keeper may descend for a short while, perhaps to write, perhaps to check the time, perhaps to sit upright in a chair that is not too comfortable. The room is spare because the work is spare. A clock, a table, a chair, tools, the logbook, a lamp, the sound of wind moving around the tower. The tower wall curves around the room. It makes the space feel protected and exposed at once. Protected because the stone or masonry is thick. Exposed because the room exists for the sea, and every sound outside is part of the duty. The keeper listens without making a ceremony of listening. A change in wind may matter, a change in fog may matter, a sound from the mechanism may matter, a change in the flame may matter. Most sounds mean nothing urgent, but the habit of noticing is part of the job. The logbook receives another note. Weather unchanged, light burning well, visibility fair, wind moderate, or perhaps visibility decreasing, mist over the water, sea rising, rain beginning. The words are ordinary. The night accepts them. If an assistant keeper is coming on duty, Footsteps may begin below. They rise through the tower with the same ringing pattern. The person leaving watch gives a brief report. The lamp is in order. The wick was trimmed. The mechanism was wound. The weather is as written. Nothing unusual. Then one keeper descends, and another remains. The light does not pause between them. This is one of the pleasing things about a well-kept station. Human beings tire, but the system is arranged so the work can continue. The handoff is quiet, almost invisible from outside, but it is the hinge on which the night's reliability turns. In the dwelling, someone may stir when a door opens below. A kettle may be set on a stove. A pair of boots may be left near a mat. A tired keeper may eat a little bread, drink something warm, or sit for a moment before sleeping. If family lives at the station, the household has learned to fold itself around the schedule of the light. People speak softly because some are awake and some are not. The tower does not have ordinary hours. Sleep at a keeper-served lighthouse could be broken. A watch might divide the night. Fog might interrupt rest. Weather might require extra attention. Supplies might need to be carried or stored at awkward times. The station asked people to live according to the needs of the light, not the other way around. And still, there were ordinary comforts. A stove, a blanket, a letter, a repaired chair, a shelf of tools placed just so, a familiar cup, a window facing the sea, a bed reached after watch. When the body finally releases the climb, the wind, the flame, and the attention, the light above continues to burn. It is easy to imagine the lighthouse only from outside, with the beam crossing the water. But the station is also made of these interiors: the kitchen table, the narrow stair, the watchroom chair, the lantern glass, the storeroom, the oil containers, the damp coat drying near warmth, the logbook page waiting for sunrise. As the night deepens, weather may change. Fog is one of the lighthouse's old companions. It can arrive softly, almost politely, and then erase distance. A clear beam that once reached far across the water may become a pale glow inside the mist. The horizon disappears. The headland disappears. Even the sea seems to move closer, because there is no longer a far edge to look toward. This is why many light stations had fog signals. A light helps when it can be seen. Fog can hide it or reduce its useful range. Sound can sometimes carry warning when sight is weakened. Different stations use different signals in different periods. Bells, horns, trumpets, sirens, compressed air systems, engines, or later machinery. The details varied, and the sounds could be loud in real life. For our quiet night, we do not need to hear a harsh blast. We can imagine the fog signal as part of the keeper's work, without making it loud for the listener. In the script, it is a low fact, not a sudden noise. If fog thickens, the keeper notes the visibility. If the station uses a fog signal, the signal may need to be started, checked, fueled, wound, or monitored according to its type. The work becomes broader than tending the lamp. Machinery may have to be kept ready. Air pressure may need to be maintained. Fuel may need attention. The sound pattern may have to remain regular. The fog changes the lantern room too. The beam no longer seems to travel into open distance. It lights the mist around the tower and comes back in a soft halo. Moisture beads on glass. The night becomes smaller and more enclosed. The keeper can see less, so the duty becomes even more attentive. Rain brings another kind of work. Wind-driven rain marks the panes. Salt spray dries into dullness. Water finds corners. Doors swell. Hinges complain. Metal slowly learns rust if it is not watched. Paint is not merely pretty on a coast, it is protection. Cleaning is not merely neatness, it is preservation. On a rough coast, weather uses every object. It pushes at windows, it lifts shingles, it loosens small fasteners, it lays salt on metal, it works on mortar, wood, paint, cloth, leather, and rope. The keeper's daily labor is the answer to that steady pressure. In the morning, after weather, there may be panes to clean, metal to dry, tools to put in order, a path to check, and fuel stores to examine. But some of the work begins during the night, simply by noticing what the weather is doing. The logbook continues. Fog beginning, fog lifting, rain from the northeast, wind shifting, sea moderate, sea rough, light burning clearly, signal sounded, signal stopped. These are not sentences meant for poetry, but they have their own calm weight. They show a human mind keeping track of the coast. At some stations, the fog signal building may stand apart from the lighthouse tower. It may have its own machinery, its own maintenance, and its own sound moving out over the water. The keeper may have to cross the station yard in damp air, carrying a lantern, hearing the sea without seeing it clearly. The path that felt simple at dusk now feels like a small route through a gray room. The tower remains lit behind him. The dwelling remains low and dark. The sea is present but hidden. The station is doing more than shining now. It is watching with light and sound. When the fog thins again, distance returns slowly. First, a dark patch appears where the water should be, then a line, then a suggestion of rocks. Then the beam seems to travel farther. The keeper may not celebrate this. He simply notes it. Weather improved, visibility better, signal stopped if the rules and conditions allow. Light in order, the night moves on. Between weather changes, there are the smaller repairs and maintenance tasks that make up so much of lighthouse life. Brass may be polished, not because it is fancy, but because clean surfaces resist neglect and reveal trouble sooner. Glass may be wiped again and again because the sea air never stops. Oil containers may be checked for leaks. Spare wicks may be stored dry. Tools may be sharpened, cleaned, or returned to their proper place. A lighthouse has many surfaces: lantern panes, lens prisms, chimneys, rails, steps, doors, windows, hinges, handles, clocks, mechanisms, tables, shelves, lamps. Each has its own kind of failure if ignored. Glass clouds, metal corrodes, wood swells, cloth soils, oil spills, dust gathers, mechanisms lose regularity, a clock runs down, a door sticks, a note goes unwritten. The keeper's work is to prevent small failures from becoming the story. That is one reason lighthouse routines are good for a sleep video. Their value is in repetition, not surprise. Sweep, wipe, trim, fill, wind, check, record, rest, return. The same verbs repeat, and because they repeat, the station remains trustworthy. In daytime, when the lamp is extinguished and the sun is up, the same work continues in a different mood. The lens can be inspected in natural light. The panes can be cleaned more easily. The floor can be swept. The stairs can be checked. The dwelling can be aired. Supplies can be counted. If paint or masonry needs attention, weather permitting, the keeper can plan it. At remote stations, supplies might arrive by boat. At shore stations, they might come by road. Either way, the station needs fuel, food, spare parts, cleaning materials, and ordinary household goods. The lighthouse beam may seem pure and simple from a distance, but behind it is a chain of delivery and storage. A barrel, a box, a ledger, a path, a storeroom, a shelf. The keeper may know the weight of each container. He may know where the damp gathers first in the storeroom. He may know which window latch sticks in easterly wind, and which step rings a little differently. This knowledge is not written in a grand manual. It lives in use. The lens itself may require special care. The glass pieces are not scrubbed carelessly. Dust and film are removed gently. A scratch, a chip, or a loosened piece would matter. The brass or metal framing supports the optical arrangement. Even when the lens is large and impressive, it is still a practical object that must survive heat, vibration, salt air, handling, and time. The lamp, too, has its own personality in the keeper's hands. A flame system may respond to draft. A wick may draw unevenly. Fuel quality may matter. A chimney may affect the steadiness of the flame. Later electric systems remove some of these concerns, but bring different ones. Bulbs, power, wiring, generators, batteries, or connections depending on period and station. Technology changed the work, but did not erase the need for reliability. A lighthouse is never only about brightness. It is about a known signal behaving as expected. We can pause again with the mariner offshore. On the chart, the lighthouse is not a romantic tower. It is a mark. It has a position, may have a listed height, range, color, and character. The light may say in effect, "This is the point you were waiting for," or "This is the danger you must keep clear of," or "This is the entrance that begins the safer water." Before modern electronic navigation, such aids were especially important. Mariners used many forms of knowledge together: coastal profiles seen by day, compass bearings, soundings, charts, buoys, beacons, lights, and experience. A lighthouse did not make the sea safe. The sea remained the sea, but it made a piece of the coast more legible in darkness or poor weather. Some lights warned, some guided, some did both. A tower on a dangerous headland might tell vessels to keep away from the rocks. A harbor light might help line up an approach. A sector light might show different colors over different arcs, telling the mariner something about direction or hazard. A flashing pattern might distinguish one station from another when several lights were visible along a coast. This is why the keeper's small tasks reach beyond the room. The lamp must not merely burn, it must show the correct light. The timing must remain regular if timing is part of its character. The color must be as expected if color is part of the system. The glass must be clear enough that the signal is not weakened by neglect. From inside, the lighthouse is a room of maintenance. From outside, it is a point of certainty. The hours after midnight are often the quietest in our imagined station. The household below has settled. The shore has lost its daytime noises. Even if a road exists, no cart passes now. The sea is the largest sound. The tower is full of small ones. The keeper on watch may stand by the lantern glass and look outward without expecting to see much. The beam crosses the water. Darkness closes behind it. The beam returns. If it is a fixed light, the room feels different, more constant and less rhythmic, but still steady. The character of the light belongs to the station, and the station keeps it. The hands of the clock move through another hour. The keeper checks the lamp. The keeper checks the lens. The keeper checks the weather. The keeper waits. There is a useful kind of boredom in this. Not empty boredom, but trustworthy boredom. A night without incident is not a wasted night. It is the goal. The safe passage of ordinary vessels, the absence of alarm, the repeated note that the light burned well, all of these are forms of success. The listener can rest inside that idea. Nothing needs to be solved at this moment. The tower is holding its place. The lamp is burning. The lens is clear. The logbook is open. The sea is moving below. The night has work, but not urgency. If we look closely at the lantern room again, we can see how many kinds of glass are present. There is the glass of the lamp chimney, close to heat and flame. There is the shaped glass of the Fresnel lens, arranged with optical purpose. There is the outer lantern glass, exposed to wind, salt, rain, and the darkness outside. These are not the same glass doing the same job. Each part has its own role. The chimney protects and shapes the flame's air. The lens gathers and directs the light. The outer panes protect the apparatus from weather while allowing the beam to leave the tower. If the listener wondered whether the lighthouse's special glass was simply a bright window, the answer is no. The ordinary panes were important, but the Fresnel lens was the special optical device. Its rings and prisms let a lamp become a maritime signal strong enough to matter. And if the listener wondered whether the lamp itself was special because it was large, the answer is only partly. Lamps could be improved and powerful, but a lamp shining without direction wastes much of itself. The beauty of the lighthouse is cooperation. Flame, glass, height, rotation or character, clean surfaces, and human care all add together. The keeper may not explain it in those words while tired at 2 a.m, but the hands know it. A cloth wipes the glass. A tool trims the wick. A weight is wound. A page is filled. A door is closed against the wind. An hour passes. At some stations there were official inspections. Keepers could be judged by the condition of the light, buildings, grounds, records, and apparatus. Cleanliness and order were not merely personal preferences. They were evidence of reliability. A dirty lens, poorly kept lamp, missing supplies, or careless logbook could mean the station was not being maintained as it should. This practical scrutiny gives the place another quiet layer. The keeper works for mariners, for the service that manages the lights, for the assistant keeper, for the family in the dwelling, and for the future page of the log. The work is solitary at times, but never meaningless. Outside, perhaps a faint rain begins. It taps the lantern glass lightly. The sound is soft enough to stay sleepy. The beam turns rain into brief silver lines. The rocks below become wet and darker. The path through the grass shines here and there where water collects. The keeper notes rain. In the dwelling, the kitchen is dark except for banked warmth or a low lamp. A chair stands where someone left it. A kettle is cool. A blanket has slipped slightly from a bed. The tower's light may pass faintly across a wall or window, depending on the arrangement of the station. For the people who live there, the beam is not a spectacle. It is part of the house, like the clock, the stove, and the door. Children at keeper stations, where families lived, might grow up with this rhythm as ordinary. Supplies arrive. Weather delays plans. The tower needs cleaning. The light is shown. The night watch changes sleep. The sea is always nearby. The extraordinary view becomes the everyday view. For an assistant keeper, the work may be apprenticeship, duty, and fatigue all at once. For a principal keeper, there may be responsibility for the whole station, the records, the behavior of assistants, the condition of stores, and the punctual showing of the light. Titles differ by system, but the division of responsibility was real. There is also a domestic arithmetic to the place. How much fuel remains, how many clean cloths are ready, how long before supplies are expected, whether the roof held in the last rain, whether a latch needs repair, whether the path to the fog signal is safe, whether the next watch begins on time. The lighthouse looks like one simple object from the sea. Inside, it is made of many small accounts. Later, perhaps near the deepest part before dawn, the keeper climbs again from the watch room into the lantern. The lens is still throwing back warm reflections. The flame remains steady. The air inside the room is warmer near the lamp and cooler near the glass. Outside, the sea is mostly sound. The keeper may step carefully around the apparatus, never bumping the lens frame, never letting a tool rest where it might fall, never touching glass with a careless hand. The work teaches caution. A lighthouse contains hard surfaces, heights, heat, glass, fuel, moving parts, and wind. Calm does not mean careless. Another trimming may be needed, another check of the fuel, another note in the log, another look at the clock. And then slowly the night begins to lose its depth. Before dawn, the change may arrive first as a less complete darkness. The sky in the east becomes not bright but thinner. The water changes from black to a soft iron gray. Rocks separate from the shadow of the headland. The keeper's house below returns as a shape with roof, wall, and window. The lamp is still burning. It must continue until sunrise, not until the keeper feels dawn approaching. The point is not mood. The point is reliability. The expected light remains until the time when daylight can replace it. The last part of the watch can feel longer than the middle. The body knows that rest is near, but the duty is not finished. The flame is checked again. The lens is observed. The pane showed droplets or salt film that will need cleaning. The logbook waits for final entries. When sunrise arrives according to the station's rule and conditions, the night exhibition of the light ends. Depending on the technology, the lamp may be extinguished, reduced, switched, or secured. A flame goes down. The chimney cools. The lens which held so much amber brightness becomes glass again in pale morning. The change is gentle. No ship offshore may notice the exact second. Daylight is taking over the work. The tower no longer needs to speak as loudly. The keeper writes. Time extinguished, weather, visibility, condition of apparatus, any repairs needed, any supplies used. If there was fog, rain, wind, or a signal, it is recorded. If the light burned well, that too is recorded. A successful night becomes a plain line. Then the daytime routine begins. The glass must be cleaned. The lamp must be prepared for the next evening. Fuel must be checked. Wicks must be attended to. The watch room must be put in order. Tools must return to their places. The stairs may be swept. The lantern room may be aired if conditions allow. The dwelling must return from the night schedule into the day. This is the circular nature of keeper work. Sunrise does not end the lighthouse. It begins preparation for sunset. In morning light, the Fresnel lens looks different. Without the flame, it is less dramatic, but easier to study. The rings and prisms are clear. Some pieces catch the pale sky. Some show the sea upside down or bent into small shapes. The brass frame is quieter now. It does not blaze. The keeper wipes carefully. A soft cloth moves over glass. Another cloth dries a pane. A small streak is found and removed. The work is patient because haste can create new trouble. A scratch is not helpful. A dropped chimney is more than an inconvenience. A missing tool at sunset can become a problem. Below, the dwelling wakes fully. Breakfast may be simple. The person who was off watch may now be awake. Someone may carry water, mend clothing, prepare food, check a list, or step outside to see what the weather has done. The station grounds are inspected in daylight. The path may be muddy. A gate may have shifted. Salt may have dried white on a railing. A gull may stand where it should not. If the station is remote, the question of supplies remains always in the background. A calm day may permit a boat to land. A bad run of weather may delay provisions. Fuel for the light has priority. Food, coal, repair materials, and mail all belong to the station's larger rhythm. The keeper lives with both the daily routine and the longer schedule of deliveries, inspections, and relief. As technology changes over the years, parts of this morning change too. Better lamps require different care. Fresnel lenses improve the reach and efficiency of the light. Kerosene replaces other fuels in many places. Gas and electricity appear in some systems. Electric lamps reduce wick trimming. Automation eventually removes resident keepers from many stations. But the meaning of the old routine remains easy to understand. A coastline at night needed dependable marks. A lighthouse turned fuel, glass, height, and human attention into a signal. Even after automation, the old keeper-served station teaches the value of maintenance. A light is useful because it works tonight, not because it once worked beautifully. Some old lenses were removed and preserved. Some towers remained active aids to navigation. Some keeper houses became museums or historic sites. Some buildings were changed, repaired, or left quiet. Visitors may climb the steps in daylight and imagine the work. They may admire the view, the glass, the height, and the beam. But the true life of the place was repetition. Lighting at sunset, keeping watch, trimming, cleaning, recording, extinguishing at sunrise, preparing again. That repetition is what we have been following tonight. Now the morning has arrived fully enough that the sea is visible. The horizon has returned. The rocks below show their shapes. The path through the salt grass is clear again. The tower stands in ordinary daylight, less mysterious, and perhaps more impressive, because it is so plainly useful. The keeper descends the stairs. The sound of footsteps moves downward, less hollow with each turn. The hand follows the rail. The body is tired, but the night has been completed. The tower door opens to the morning air. Outside, the wind is softer than it was. Or perhaps it is only that daylight makes it feel less sharp. The keeper crosses the path toward the dwelling. Behind him, the lantern room is quiet. The lens waits. The lamp cools. The logbook holds the night in ache. At sea, any vessel that used the light has already moved on. It may be closer to harbor now. It may be farther along the coast. It may never know the names of the keepers who watched the lamp. That is all right. The work was never meant to be noticed closely by those who benefited from it. It was meant to be dependable. Before we leave the station, we can walk once more through the parts of the lighthouse in daylight, slowly enough to see why each part mattered. The tower is the most visible part, but it is not the whole lighthouse. Its height gives the light a wider reach over the curve and clutter of the coast. It lifts the signal above nearby buildings, trees, dunes, cliffs, and spray. A low lamp on shore can be hidden by land or confused with other lights. A tower puts the signal in a known place, at a known height, where it can be entered in a chart and recognized from the water. The shape of the tower also helps by day. Many lighthouses served as day marks, visible objects that could be identified even when the lamp was not needed. Color, shape, stripes, nearby buildings, and location could all help a mariner recognize the station in daylight. At night, the lamp and lens carried the identity. By day, the structure itself could become part of the coastal memory. The lantern room sits at the top because that is where the useful horizon is. It is built to protect the light while letting it escape. The panes keep out wind and rain, but they must be clear enough that the beam is not softened by neglect. The framing must hold glass securely against weather. The ventilators must let heat and smoke behave properly where older lamps are used. The room has to be enclosed and open at the same time. Enclosed for protection, open for light. Inside the lantern, the lamp is a source. Over the years, lighthouse lamps changed. An older light might begin as a simple beacon or a less efficient flame. Reflectors improved the use of the flame. Later lamps and better fuels made the light steadier or brighter. Kerosene became important in many places. Gas and electricity changed the keeper's routine again. But through all those changes, the station still depended on the same basic promise. The light must appear when expected and remain in order until it is no longer needed. The lamp does not work alone. A flame can be bright near the keeper and still waste much of its light upward, downward, or backward. That is why the optical system matters. Reflectors, lenses, and later equipment were all attempts to make the available light more useful. The Fresnel lens is the most graceful way to see that idea. It is made from pieces that turn thickness into structure. Instead of one heavy mass of glass, it uses rings and prisms, arranged with intention. The central area catches light that would already travel outward. Other prisms catch light that would have gone above or below and bend it toward the horizon. From the sea, the result may seem like a clean flash or beam. From inside, it is a patient arrangement of small decisions in glass. This is why we should not call it simply a window. A window is important because it lets the beam leave the room. But a window does not give the beam its character. The Fresnel lens is not merely transparent, it is shaped. Its shapes are the work. It is also why we should not imagine the lens as magical. It does not create brightness by itself. It cannot make a neglected lamp reliable. It cannot clean its own prisms. It cannot trim a smoking wick. Its power comes from cooperation with everything around it. The lamp, the fuel or current, the lens, the turning mechanism if there is one, the lantern panes, the height of the tower, and the keeper's attention all have to meet. In a quiet way, the lighthouse is an argument against shortcuts. A slightly dirty pane matters. A slightly smoky chimney matters. A late lighting matters. A skipped entry matters. A poorly kept mechanism matters. No single small neglect may look dramatic in the moment, but the station exists because details accumulate. This is true in the storeroom as well. Fuel is not just fuel once it is delivered. It must be stored safely and kept usable. Spare wicks must be dry. Cloths must be clean enough to clean. Tools must be where a tired person can find them in the dark. A lamp part needed at midnight cannot be somewhere uncertain. The shelf, the hook, the box, and the label all belong to the light. The keeper's dwelling has the same practical dignity. It supports the person who supports the apparatus. Food, warmth, sleep, clothing, and order are not separate from navigation. A keeper who is cold, hungry, confused, or exhausted beyond use cannot keep a station well. The house at the foot of the tower is therefore not only domestic background, it is part of the system that keeps the beam steady. The day may include work that a passing visitor would not connect with lighthouses at all. Washing, mending, carrying water, cleaning boots, preparing meals, checking coal or wood, scrubbing a floor, repairing a handle, drying damp clothes, writing a letter, receiving instructions, waiting for supplies, watching the barometer or the sky, looking at the sea, because the sea is always the station's reason. At a family station, ordinary life and public duty overlap. A child may know when to keep quiet because a keeper has come off watch. A meal may be timed around duty. A family conversation may stop when weather changes. A celebration may be small because the light cannot be left. The station may feel like home, but it is a home with a public promise burning above it. At a station with assistance, the human routine has another texture. People must work together even when tired. A missed handoff, unclear note, or neglected task can burden the next keeper. Good order is also courtesy. To leave the lamp trimmed and the room in order is to care for the next person as well as the mariner offshore. The logbook holds this shared continuity. It does not need beautiful language to matter. It says what happened. It says when the light was lit. It says when it was extinguished. It says what weather moved through. It says what was cleaned, repaired, noticed, or used. It gives inspectors, successors, and future readers a way to understand the station's life. If we imagine turning back through old log pages, the repeated entries might become almost hypnotic. Sunset, light lit, weather clear, sea smooth, wind west, watch maintained, wicks trimmed, sunrise, light extinguished, apparatus cleaned, supplies received, fog beginning, fog signal started, fog cleared, signal stopped. Again and again, the same kind of words. That repetition is not empty. The coast outside changes every hour, but the purpose of the station holds. Tide rises and falls. Moonlight appears or is hidden. Fog enters and leaves. Rain washes the panes, and salt dries after it. The light keeps its character through all of it. We can think for a moment about that word character again. A fixed light shows steadily. It may be recognized by where it is, how high it is, what color it shows, and what other marks surround it. A flashing light appears and disappears at intervals. A rotating lens can make a fixed source seem to flash or sweep because the beam reaches the observer only at certain moments. A sector light can show different colors in different directions, marking safe or unsafe bearings or helping define an approach. The point is that the pattern was part of the message. For a sleepy listener, this can be imagined without strain. Far out on the water, a small light appears. It disappears. It returns after the expected interval. The person on watch aboard the vessel recognizes the rhythm. The chart confirms it. The vessel continues with a little more certainty. No drama is required. The lighthouse works best when it becomes ordinary to the people who depend on it. The keeper's ordinary world is full of materials, stone or brick in the tower, iron or wood in the stairs, brass in the lamp or lens frame, glass in the chimney, panes and lens, oil or kerosene in a container, or later gas or electricity moving through a different system, cloth for cleaning, leather in boots, wool in clothing, paper in the logbook, ink in the pen, salt on nearly everything. Each material behaves. Stone holds cold, iron rings and rusts, brass tarnishes and can be polished, glass reveals dirt at the worst possible time, oil stains and smells. Wool holds warmth even in damp air better than many lighter fabrics, but it still needs drying. Paper absorbs the atmosphere of the room. Salt returns no matter how often it is wiped away. The station is therefore not a single machine, but a conversation among materials. The keeper learns that conversation by use. He may not describe it in technical language. He may simply know that this latch needs oil, this pane clouds first, this step is slick in rain, this cloth leaves lint, this wind brings spray to that side of the lantern, this fuel container should not be trusted until it is checked. Quiet competence often sounds like that. This one, that side, not yet, again before sunset. The routines become exact. because the place teaches them. At some lighthouses, the climb itself shapes the day. Up to prepare, down to fetch, up to check, down to eat, up for the watch, down after handoff, up again when weather changes. A tower can make simple tasks into repeated physical work. The light is high because it helps mariners, but the height asks something from the people who keep it. Even when a mechanism or hoist helps move supplies, the keeper still climbs. The body becomes part of the architecture. Calves, knees, hands, and back learn the station. The stairs are not scenic. They are the distance between ordinary life and the beam. There is also mental distance. The keeper leaves the warmth of the dwelling and enters the tower, leaves conversation and enters watchfulness, leaves the table and enters the glass room. Then after duty, returns with the night still in the body. This is why the final descent after sunrise can feel so quiet. The night has been transferred into records and tasks. The lamp is cooling. The day is available again, but sleep may still be delayed by cleaning. The keeper cannot simply turn away from the apparatus. Morning maintenance belongs to the night just completed. If the previous night brought no trouble, the station is still inspected. A trouble-free night does not mean a work-free morning. It means the maintenance worked well enough that trouble did not become visible. If the night brought fog, the fog signal may need attention. If rain came, the panes may need extra cleaning. If wind shifted, salt may have reached a new surface. If a mechanism sounded different, it must be checked. If a supply was used, it must be noted. Each condition leaves a small debt to be paid before sunset. The keeper pays those debts with routine. This is one reason old lighthouse history can feel comforting when told slowly. It is not comforting because the sea is harmless. It is comforting because the work has a shape. Prepare, observe, correct, record, rest when possible. Begin again. The coast does not become safe in any absolute way. Rocks remain rocks. Shoals remain shoals. Fog remains fog. But a little order is placed where order can be placed. A light is shown. A signal is kept. A page is written. A tired person climbs anyway. Over many years, the lighthouse may change around the keeper. A new lamp arrives. A lens is installed or upgraded. A fuel changes. A fog signal is improved. A telegraph or telephone may eventually connect some stations to a wider system. Electricity may come. Automation may follow. The dwelling may become less necessary. The keeper's role may shrink, shift, or disappear. There can be sadness in that, but there is also continuity. The goal remains the same, a dependable aid to navigation in a known place. Whether kept by hand, mechanism, electricity, or automatic control, the signal exists for those who need to understand the coast. When old keeper houses become museums, the tools can look still and charming. A polished lamp, a coiled rope, a logbook under glass, a lens shining in a visitor center, but at night in service, those objects were not decorative. They were used. They had weight, smell, temperature, risk, and timing. They belonged to tired hands. We can let that thought slow down. The light seen from sea is clean. The work inside is not invisible because it is unimportant. It is invisible. The lighthouse asks for faith in quiet labor. It asks a ship to trust a signal, and asks the keeper to deserve that trust. It asks the listener now to rest in a world where small tasks are done in order. The evening will come again. The house will grow dim. The table will hold the logbook. The tower door will open. The stairs will ring softly. The lantern room will wait in the blue hour. The lamp will be checked. The chimney will be clear. The lens will catch the last daylight. The panes will face the sea. The wick, if this is a wick lamp, will be trimmed and ready. The mechanism, if the light rotates, will be wound and watched. The clock will move toward sunset. And when the correct time comes, the light will begin again. It will not begin with drama. It will begin with competence. That is the lighthouse's quiet strength. We can also let the history widen for a few minutes, without leaving the calm of the station. Long before electric lamps and automated towers, coastal lights began with very simple ideas. A fire on a height, a beacon near a harbor, a signal that said land is here, danger is here, or entrance is here. The technology changed, but the need underneath it was old. People moving by water needed marks they could trust, especially when darkness made the coast difficult to read. An early light might be less powerful and less precise than the later lighthouse we are imagining. It might depend on an open flame, a coal fire, candles, oil, reflectors, or other arrangements according to period and place. Smoke, wind, fuel, and weather all limited what could be done. The better the lamp and optic became, the more useful the signal could be. But every improvement still had to face the same conditions: darkness, distance, salt, rain, fog, fatigue, and time. The arrival of the Fresnel lens did not remove the keeper. It gave the keeper a more effective instrument to care for. A better lens could send more of the lamp's light where ships needed it, but it also introduced a precise glass apparatus that had to remain clean and aligned. More power can mean more responsibility. A fine instrument is still vulnerable to ordinary dirt. The same is true of fuel changes. A new fuel might burn brighter, cleaner, or more efficiently. It might reduce one problem and introduce another. Storage might change. Wick behavior might change. Lamp design might change. Instructions might change. The keeper had to understand the station as it actually existed, not as a simple idea of a lighthouse. This is why old instructions for keepers can feel so practical. They speak in duties. Light the lamps, keep them burning clear, maintain watch, trim before handing over. Do not turn the watchroom into a bedroom. Keep the apparatus clean, record what happens. The language is plain because the purpose is plain. The tower also belongs to a larger organization. A lighthouse could be part of a national or regional system of aids to navigation. Inspectors, boards, services, engineers, builders, glassmakers, metalworkers, keepers, and mariners all contributed to the same result. From the sea it appears as one light. Behind it is a whole chain of people and decisions. The keeper is the person nearest the nightly reality of that chain. The engineer may design the optic. The service may provide instructions. The supplier may deliver fuel. The chart may list the light. But when darkness comes, the keeper is the person in the tower with the lamp, the glass, the weather, and the clock. That nearness gives the keeper's work its quiet seriousness. No one offshore sees the trimmed wick. No one offshore sees the hand wiping salt from a pane. No one offshore sees the note made in the book. No one offshore sees the stairs climbed while tired. But the beam includes all of those things. If we stand in the lantern room after morning cleaning, the lens is silent. The apparatus seems almost too still to have filled the night. The glass prisms no longer flash with lamplight, but they hold the pale sky in angled fragments. The metal frame is cool. The outer panes show the horizon clearly again. The floor is swept. The lamp is prepared. This is the lighthouse at rest. It is not asleep in the human sense. It is ready. Ready is a different kind of calm. Ready means the wick is cut, the fuel is present, the glass is clear, the mechanism is watched, the logbook is near, and the keeper knows the hour. Ready means nothing has to be improvised at sunset. Improvisation has its place in emergencies, but a lighthouse tries to live before emergency. It tries to make the expected thing happen at the expected time. For mariners, that expectation could be written down. A light list might describe the station's name, position, height, color, range, and character. A chart might show its place. A person familiar with the coast might know the sequence of lights along a route. The lighthouse therefore belongs to memory and paperwork as much as stone and glass. This can be imagined as a quiet exchange across miles. The keeper writes in the station log. The mariner reads from a chart or light list. The beam travels over the water. Both people trust that the details are correct. If the light flashes every certain number of seconds, the timing matters. If the light has a colored sector, the color matters. If the light is fixed, its steadiness matters. If it is meant to be visible over a certain arc, its placement matters. The keeper may not control every design feature, but the keeper protects the condition that allows those design features to be useful. The ordinary language of lighthouse work can make this feel approachable. Clean, fill, trim, wind, watch, note, repair. These are household scale verbs. They do not sound like navigation, but in a lighthouse they become navigation. The same kind of transformation happens with the building materials. Glass becomes a beam, stone becomes height, brass becomes alignment, oil becomes a visible signal, paper becomes accountability, a clock becomes safety, a staircase becomes access to the horizon. We can let each of those rest for a breath. Glass becomes a beam, stone becomes height, brass becomes alignment, oil becomes a signal, paper becomes memory, a clock becomes safety, a staircase becomes access to the horizon, and a keeper's repeated attention becomes trust. In the afternoon, after the night has been cleaned away, the station may have a short, ordinary quiet. The weather may allow a door to stand open. Light may fall across the kitchen floor. The sea may look harmless for an hour, as if it has never hidden rocks or covered shoals. The tower may cast a long shadow over grass. A gull may settle on a roof and leave again. The lens waits above, invisible from the table. There may be mending to do. There may be accounts to check. There may be a delivery expected. There may be a letter to write or read. If the station has a garden, it may need attention because food and comfort are not separate from the life of the light. If a fence has loosened, it must be fixed. If a path is washed out, it must be repaired before someone needs it at night. The lighthouse is a place where future needs are prepared in advance. That is another restful idea. The keeper cannot know exactly what the next night will bring, but the keeper can make readiness more likely. The cloths can be washed, the lamp can be checked, the stairs can be kept clear, the stores can be counted, the clock can be wound, the logbook can be set in its place, the weather can be watched. This preparation does not remove uncertainty. It gives uncertainty fewer places to hide. As sunset approaches again in our imagination, the station begins to turn back toward night. The colors become softer. The sea darkens. The tower changes from a building into a signal waiting to happen. The keeper's steps become purposeful again. The house grows quiet. Objects return to the table. The same tools appear. The same checks begin. This is not repetition because nothing else can be thought of. It is repetition because the work is important enough to be repeated accurately. The listener may already know the path now, from the dwelling to the tower door, from the tower door to the stair, from the stair to the watchroom, from the watchroom to the lantern, from the lamp to the lens, from the lens to the panes, from the panes to the sea. The route has become familiar. That familiarity is the point. Sleep often comes more easily inside a familiar route. The mind does not need to defend itself from surprise. It can follow the steps. It can hold the image of the tower, the glass, the light, and the water. It can let the facts become soft around the edges while still remaining true. So if you are listening with eyes closed, the lighthouse can stay simple. A dark coast, a keeper's house, a tower stair, a lantern room, a lamp, a lens, a beam over water, and a night that passes without alarm. The beam goes out across the sea again. It does not hurry. It does not explain itself loudly. It simply returns and returns and returns. Somewhere beyond the dark water, a vessel may see it. Somewhere below, the keeper's house may be quiet. Somewhere in the tower, the flame or lamp remains tended. The lens organizes the light. The tower holds it high. The keeper keeps the promise. By the time we reach the final part of this episode, the narration will leave room for the lighthouse itself. The sound can become only low sea, soft wind, and the faint feeling of a beam moving through darkness. No spoken instruction is needed there. The station has already taught us its rhythm. Before that silence arrives, we can hold the whole night in order one last time. Evening on the path, tools on the table, fuel checked, clock checked, tower door opened, stairs climbed, watchroom passed. Lantern entered, lamp prepared, chimney cleared, wick trimmed, lens inspected, panes clean, sunset reached, light shown, logbook opened, watch maintained, weather noted, fog considered, signal ready, mechanism checked, glass wiped, handoff made, night deepened, rain softened, sea moved, light continued, dawn thinned. Before sunrise closes the watch, there is still more to understand about the lighthouse as a working place. We have already seen the lamp, the lens, the tower, and the keeper's routine. But a lighthouse also belonged to a network of people who designed it, supplied it, inspected it, repaired it, recorded it, and used it from the water. The tower may look solitary from the shore, standing against wind and spray, but it was never completely alone. It was connected to charts, harbors, workshops, ship captains, lighthouse boards, coast guards, engineers, glassmakers, metalworkers, oil suppliers, and families who lived by the rhythm of the light. So let us stay a little longer in the quiet hours and widen the view. When people ask what is special about the glass or lamp of a lighthouse, there are really several kinds of glass to think about. There may be ordinary window glass in the dwelling. There may be storm panes around the lantern room, keeping weather away from the apparatus. There may be a glass chimney around a flame, shaping the draft and helping the lamp burn properly. And then there may be the Fresnel lens itself, which is not ordinary window glass at all. The Fresnel lens was made from shaped glass elements. Each piece was cut or molded so that light entering it would be bent and redirected. In a large lens, the glass could appear like rings, steps, prisms, and bullseye panels arranged in a brass frame. The lens did not create light. The lamp or bulb created light. The lens gathered and organized that light, sending much of it outward instead of letting it waste itself in all directions. This is the simple distinction worth keeping. A chimney protects and steadies the flame. Lantern panes protect the apparatus from weather. A Fresnel lens shapes the light into a useful beam. If a person stood beside an ordinary oil lamp in a room, the light would spread gently around the table. It would illuminate hands, paper, walls, and nearby objects. That is good for a house. But a lighthouse needs something else. It needs to take the light from the lamp and place as much of it as possible out toward the horizon. Before Fresnel lenses became common, many lighthouses used reflectors behind lamps. A reflector could take some of the backward-moving light and throw it outward. This was useful, but not as efficient as the later lens systems. The Fresnel lens made a great improvement because it used glass to bend light from many angles into a stronger, more directed signal. The lens could be large or small. Lighthouse lenses were described by orders. A first-order lens was very large, used where a powerful light was needed. Smaller orders served shorter ranges, harbor lights, river lights, and other places where the light did not need to reach as far. The word order can sound like a ranking of importance, but in practice, it referred to the size and optical power of the lens system. A small harbor light could be just as important to the people using that harbor as a great sea light was to ships offshore. Imagine the keeper standing near a first-order lens. The glass rises taller than a person. The brass frame is not decoration. It holds each prism and panel in the right place. The lens is beautiful, but its beauty comes from purpose. Every ring and curve has a job. Light from the lamp enters the glass. The glass bends it. The scattered glow becomes a beam. The beam leaves the lantern and crosses the dark. Now imagine a smaller lens in a harbor light. It may not feel as grand, but the principle remains. The glass is still organized. The lamp is still placed carefully. The light still has a character. The keeper still has to keep the surfaces clean enough for the system to do its work. Clean glass was not a small matter. Dust, soot, salt, smoke, and moisture could all interfere with brightness. The keeper's cloth was part of the optical system in a practical sense. If the lens was dirty, the finest engineering could not fully help. The beam had to pass through the real surfaces in front of it. Salt air leaves films. Flame can leave smoke. Metal can tarnish. Water can spot glass. A careless hand can leave oil from the skin. A storm can drive moisture against panes. Even when the light burns steadily, the world keeps touching it, so the keeper cleans. There is no drama in the cloth moving over glass, but there is discipline. The keeper cannot rush. Glass can be chipped, scratched, cracked, or loosened. A large Fresnel lens is made from many separate pieces, and each piece belongs where it is. Cleaning becomes a careful conversation between hand and surface. The cloth follows the curves. The keeper sees the flame reflected and broken into small fragments. A bright point appears, disappears, and appears again as the cloth moves. Brass also needs care. Brass frames could support the lens and apparatus, but they could also collect dust, fingerprints, and salt. Polishing was not only for pride. It reduced corrosion and helped the keeper see that the apparatus was in order. A clean room also made faults easier to notice. A loose screw, a cracked chimney, a fuel leak, a smoky flame, or a pane beginning to cloud could be seen sooner in a place kept properly. The lighthouse is a lesson in small margins. A little soot makes the beam weaker. A little misalignment changes what the lens does. A little neglect in fuel becomes a large problem at midnight. A small failure in routine may become invisible from the shore and very visible from the sea. This is why lighthouse instructions were often plain and strict. They did not have to be poetic. They had to be obeyed. Light at sunset, bright and clear through the night. Watch maintained. lamps trimmed, apparatus cleaned, records kept, supplies preserved. The keeper was trusted with repetition, and repetition was part of safety. In different eras and stations, the lamp could be a simple oil lamp, a more advanced multi-wick lamp, an argon-style lamp, a kerosene lamp, a vapor system, gas, electricity, or another source adapted to the place and period. We do not need to force every lighthouse into one technology. The important point is that the source of light changed over time, and each change changed the keeper's work. An oil flame required fuel, wick, air, and trimming. The keeper had to pay attention to the shape of the flame. A ragged flame could smoke. A low flame could reduce range. Too much fuel or too little air could make trouble. The glass chimney helped manage the draft, but it also had to stay clear. Kerosene and mineral oil systems could burn brighter and more reliably than some earlier fuels, but they still required handling and care. Fuel had to be stored, carried, poured, and protected from contamination. Lamps had to be filled. Spills had to be avoided. The keeper had to respect fire, because the lighthouse was full of things that mattered and some that could burn. Gas systems changed the routine again. Electric lights changed it further. Electrification could reduce the need for carrying fuel and trimming wicks, but it did not remove all responsibility at once. Wires, bulbs, generators, motors, batteries, switches, and backup systems could all require attention. A station did not stop being a station just because the flame became a filament, or arc, or bulb. Automation changed it again. A fully automated light might not need a keeper living at the station, but someone still had to design it, inspect it, repair it, and make sure it appeared correctly on charts and official lists. Automation moved much of the routine away from the daily household rhythm, but it did not make the light meaningless. A light still had to be reliable. For a sleep video, it is tempting to imagine the old keeper's routine as warmer and more human than later systems. In some ways it is. A hand trimming a wick has a texture that a switch does not. But the deeper idea is the same across the technologies. The coast needs a known signal. The signal needs maintenance. The people responsible for it must notice details before those details become failures. Now widen the view again, from lamp and lens to the lantern room itself. The lantern room is the glassed-in room at the top of the tower. It may be round, polygonal, or shaped according to the tower and period. It has panes around it and a roof above it. It has a gallery outside or below where the keeper might step carefully if weather and station design allowed. It must protect the apparatus while allowing the light to leave. This is not easy. The lantern room has to face wind, salt, rain, sun, cold, heat, and birds. It has to endure vibration and weather. The panes have to be strong enough to survive the place, but clear enough not to waste the beam. The metalwork has to hold shape. The ventilation has to help heat and smoke escape, especially with flame lamps, while still keeping weather out as much as possible. Ventilation mattered because lamps consumed air and produced heat. A flame in a closed space is never just a flame. It changes the air around it. Chimneys, vents, and lantern construction helped the lamp burn properly and helped protect the room. If smoke gathered, the light suffered. If heat built up badly, the apparatus and room suffered. A lantern was a small weatherproof room with fire at its center. That is a demanding combination. In cold weather, glass could fog or frost. In damp weather, surfaces could sweat. In windy weather, drafts could find small openings. In summer, heat could gather under the lantern roof. The keeper did not treat the lantern as a static object. The room had moods, because the weather had moods. Still, the work stayed plain. Check the panes, check the flame, check the lens, check the ventilation, listen to the wind, look at the horizon, write what needs to be remembered. A lighthouse was not only a light for clear nights. Fog complicated everything. Fog can make the sea feel close and hidden at the same time. It softens the edge of the lantern glass. It turns a beam into a glowing wall. It can make a nearby sound seem distant, or a distant sound seem strangely near. For mariners, fog could hide land, hazards, and lights. A powerful light might be visible only faintly or not at all, depending on the density of the fog and the distance. This is where fog signals entered the work. Different places used different signals over time. Bells, whistles, sirens, horns, guns in older systems, compressed air trumpets, and later electrically operated devices. A fog signal was not meant to be pleasant. It was meant to be identifiable. It told vessels something important when the light could not do its normal job. For our quiet video, we are not using a loud foghorn. The sound design should remain gentle, but historically, the fog signal could be part of the station's responsibility. It might have its own machinery, fuel, timing, maintenance, and log entries. A keeper might have to start it when visibility fell below a certain distance, keep it operating, and stop it when conditions improved. The sound had a character, just as the light had a character. One station might sound at one interval, another might use a different pattern. The mariner was not simply hearing noise. The mariner was hearing a known signal from a known place, matched against charts, instructions, and experience. Imagine a foggy night at the station without making it frightening. The tower is close and damp. The beam pushes into whiteness. The sea is heard but not seen clearly. The keeper moves through a world reduced to mere objects. Rail, table, pane, lamp, cloth, logbook, door. Beyond the lantern room, everything becomes distance. The fog signal begins. It sounds across the water, waits, and sounds again. The keeper records the time. The night becomes a pattern of light, sound, and patience. When the fog lifts, the light reaches farther again. The keeper notes the change. The fog signal may stop. The station returns to the quieter rhythm of clear visibility, but the record remains. Weather at sea is not only something experienced. At a lighthouse, weather is also something observed, timed, and written down. The logbook deserves more time. A logbook can seem humble, but it is one of the most important objects in the station. It makes the work accountable. It helps relief keepers understand what happened. It helps inspectors see patterns. It helps future repairs begin with knowledge instead of guesswork. It turns the lighthouse from a place of memory into a place of evidence. An entry might include the time the lamp was lit, the time it was extinguished, the weather, the wind, the sea state, fog, visibility, fuel used, repairs made, supplies received, vessels observed, visitors, inspections, and unusual events. Not every logbook was identical, and not every station recorded the same things in the same way, but the principle was steady. The station wrote down its nights. Writing also slows the keeper down in a useful way. To write an observation, one must notice it. To note a repair, one must name it. To record a time, one must check the clock. The logbook turns attention into habit. There is something restful in the image of the keeper writing at the small table while the light turns or burns above. The pen moves, the sea continues, the lamp holds, the record receives one more line. Many viewers may think of lighthouses mostly from the outside, as towers on postcards or cliffs. But for a keeper, the inside mattered just as much. The tower had stairs, rooms, thresholds, tools, storage, drafts, cold patches, warm patches, and sounds. A working station had paths between tasks, from table to tower, from tower to oil store, from lens to watch room, from dwelling to store shed, from logbook to weather, from sunrise cleaning to evening preparation. The station was a map of repeated movement. This movement also included the lives of families and assistant keepers at many stations. Not every keeper lived alone. Many stations involved spouses, children, relatives, assistant keepers, and sometimes a small community around the work. Family life at a station could be ordinary and difficult at the same time. Meals, laundry, repairs, schooling, illness, celebrations, fatigue, and weather all existed beside the formal duty of keeping the light. The household could not be separated entirely from the work. If the dwelling was attached to the tower, the station's rhythm entered the rooms directly. If the dwelling stood nearby, the tower was still visible from the windows. The family might measure evenings by the lamp. They might know the sound of the keeper's steps on the stairs. They might know when fog meant more work, when supply days mattered, and when a storm would make sleep lighter. At remote stations, supply was its own story. Fuel, food, water, tools, replacement glass, spare parts, mail, medicine, and personal goods all had to arrive somehow. Some stations were reached by road, others by boat. Some were easy in calm weather and difficult when seas rose. A station could be close to land and still feel separated by weather. Supplies had to be stored carefully. Fuel had to be protected. Wicks and claws had to stay dry and clean. Tools had to be kept where they could be found. Replacement parts mattered because the light could not wait weeks for a small necessary object if that object failed at the wrong time. This is another reason the lighthouse feels restful when understood properly. It is a place where objects have homes. A cloth belongs in one place, a tool belongs in another, fuel belongs where it is safe, the logbook belongs where it can be used, the clock belongs where it can be seen. Order reduces worry. The keeper's inspection of supplies is not glamorous, but it is protective. Enough fuel, enough clean cloth, enough wick, spare chimney, tools in place, windows secure, door fastened, vent clear, lens clean, lamp ready. One by one, possible problems become smaller. Now think from the mariner's side again. A ship approaching a coast at night does not see the lighthouse as a tourist sees it. The mariner sees a signal in relation to position. The light's height, range, color, flash pattern, and bearing all matter. The chart may show where the light stands. A light list may describe its character. The navigator compares the real light with the expected light. If the light is fixed, it may appear steady. If it flashes, the timing matters. The mariner may count seconds between flashes. If there are groups of flashes, the grouping matters. If there are red, white, or green sectors, the color may tell the mariner something about position relative to a channel or hazard. A sector light can show one color over safer water and another color over danger, though the exact meaning depends on the station and chart. This is why lighthouses were not interchangeable. Two bright towers on the same coast could confuse vessels if they looked too similar. The character of the light helped prevent that. A lighthouse had an identity, not for vanity, but for navigation. The beam, then, is a kind of language. Steady, flash, dark interval, white sector, red sector, known height, known place, known rhythm. The keeper may not see the vessel that uses the signal. The vessel may pass far beyond the rocks, guided by a light that appears as a small point. The mariner may never know the keeper's name. The keeper may never know the ship's name, but the exchange still happens. This is one of the quiet beauties of lighthouse work. Much of its success is unseen. The best night may be a night in which nothing dramatic happens, because the signal did what it was meant to do. The same is true of maintenance. If the keeper cleans the lens well, no one offshore says, "The glass is clean tonight." They simply see the light as expected. If the fuel is managed well, no one says the lamp did not fail. The beam remains there. If the logbook is kept well, no one on a passing vessel notices. But the station is stronger because the record exists. Reliable work often disappears into reliability. That is why we can spend so much time on simple acts. There is another part of lighthouse design that deserves a slow look. Height. The tower lifted the light so it could be seen farther, but taller was not always automatically better in every situation. A light too low might be hidden by land or waves. A light higher up could reach farther to the horizon. But haze, local geography, and the needs of the approach mattered. Some lights were placed on tall towers because the land was low. Others stood on shorter towers because the cliff already provided height. Harbor lights might be lower because they served a different purpose than a coastal landfall light. So a lighthouse is not only a tower, it is a tower placed in conversation with land and water. The engineer had to consider the coast. Where are the rocks? Where is the channel? What approach will vessels take? What can be seen from offshore? What weather is common? What foundation will hold? How will keepers reach the station? How will supplies arrive? How powerful must the light be? What character should it show? What lens order is appropriate? What will the sea do to the base of the tower over years? The design begins long before a keeper lights the lamp. Stone, brick, iron, concrete, timber, and later steel or other materials could all appear in lighthouse construction, depending on place and period. The tower had to resist weather. Foundations had to suit rock, sand, marsh, pier, island, or reef. A lighthouse on a firm headland had different problems from a lighthouse in surf, on a shoal, or at the end of a breakwater. The calm tower in our video can stand for all this without becoming technical. It reminds us that every useful signal begins with placement. A light in the wrong place is not the right light. A bright lamp poorly located cannot serve the same way as a carefully placed station. A lighthouse is both object and address. Its location is part of what it means. The night watch is underway. The keeper has already made rounds, checked the lamp, watched the weather, and written in the log. Perhaps an assistant has taken a turn. Perhaps the principal keeper will relieve him. In some historical instructions, the duty was shared, and the person ending a watch would leave the lamps trimmed and in good order for the next. This handoff is another quiet ritual. The outgoing keeper does not simply stop. He prepares the work for another pair of eyes and hands. The flame is checked. The wick is trimmed if needed. The glass is inspected. The record is ready. The next keeper receives the station not as a vague responsibility, but as a set of known conditions. Handoff matters because fatigue is real. A lighthouse watch asks for attention during hours when the body would like to sleep. The rule against beds or sofas in watch spaces makes sense here. The work is not heavy every minute, but it is continuous in responsibility. A keeper might sit, listen, write, rise, inspect, and sit again. The risk is not constant exertion. The risk is drifting out of attention. For our video, that distinction matters too. The mood can be gentle, slow, and restful without making the work vague. The keeper's calm comes from knowing what to do next. A round through the station at 2 a.m. might be very quiet. The dwelling is dark. The path outside is silvered by moonlight or hidden by cloud. The tower wall is cold. The lantern glows above. The keeper's hand knows the rail. The stairs are familiar enough that each step feels expected. In the lantern, the lens stands clear. Outside, the sea moves without needing to be watched every second. But still, it is watched. The keeper looks out at the water. Perhaps a distant light is visible from a vessel. Perhaps there is nothing. The absence of a ship does not reduce the duty. The next ship may be beyond the horizon, already depending on what will be visible later. The flame is steady, the beam is steady, the station is steady. And if the station uses a rotating lens or optic, there is another quiet mechanism to imagine. Not every lighthouse light rotated. Some were fixed, some flashed by other means, some used sectors. But in rotating systems, the optical apparatus could turn so that bright panels swept across the horizon. Older mechanisms might use clockwork and weights. The keeper might have to wind the mechanism, check the movement, and make sure the timing remained correct. Clockwork in a lighthouse is a beautiful idea because it connects time directly to light. A weight descends slowly, gears turn, the lens moves, the flash appears at the interval mariners expect. If the timing changes, the character of the light changes, so the mechanism must be kept in order. Imagine the sound, not loud, a soft mechanical presence, a faint movement of gear and bearing, a weight slowly paying out, a lens turning with great patience. The keeper listens, not because the sound is decorative, but because familiar sounds can reveal unfamiliar problems. The ear is another tool. A change in the lamp sound, the mechanism sound, the wind sound, or the sea sound may draw attention. A good keeper is not only looking, he is listening to the station. The smell matters too. Smoke may signal a wick problem. Fuel smells may warn of a spill. Dampness may suggest a leak or condensation. Warm metal, cold stone, salt air, oil, cloth, and lamp glass all make the station legible. A lighthouse is read by eye, ear, hand, and habit. This is part of why the routine can hold a viewer for a long time. The world is full of small sensory anchors. The same objects return, but they return with slightly different meanings. A cloth is not just a cloth after we understand soot. A stair is not just a stair after we understand fuel carried upward. A lens is not just glass after we understand the beam. A logbook is not just paper after we understand responsibility. The night becomes deeper because the objects become known. Most nights are not repair nights, but every station lives with the possibility. A hinge can stiffen, a pane can crack, a wick can fray, a lamp part can wear, a latch can loosen, a roof can leak, a clock can drift, a supply can run low, a painted surface can begin to fail under salt, a path can wash out after weather. Some repairs can be made by the keeper. Others require a specialist or an inspector, but the first step is usually noticing. The keeper who notices early may turn a future failure into a small entry in the log and a manageable task in daylight. This is true across many old working places. Maintenance is a kind of foresight. It sees a problem while it is still small enough to be ordinary. At sunrise, the light may be put out, but the work is not over. The lamp cools, the lens waits, the room has to be cleaned, fuel may be checked, the log must be finished, the station must be prepared for the next evening. Morning is not an ending so much as a reset. In daylight, the lighthouse can look peaceful in a different way. The tower no longer shines. The lens catches sun instead of lamp flame. Dust becomes visible. Salt marks appear on glass. The keeper can see what the night concealed. Tasks that would be difficult in darkness become plain. Daylight work might include washing panes, cleaning the lens, polishing metal, trimming or replacing wick, filling lamps, checking vents, cleaning the watchroom, inspecting the gallery, reviewing supplies, receiving visitors or inspectors, reading instructions, and making household repairs. Again, the details vary, but the rhythm holds. Night shows the signal. Day prepares the signal to be shown again. There is also weather after weather. A storm leaves evidence. Salt crust, damp cloth, a shifted object, water forced under a door, a loose shutter, a path covered with debris. A keeper may walk the station after rough weather and learn what the night did. This is another kind of reading. The building tells the keeper where it was pressed. The sea leaves marks. The wind leaves marks. The tower stands, but standing still includes endurance. Over years, maintenance becomes history. Paint over paint, replaced panes, polished brass, worn stair treads, a rail smoothed from hands, a table marked by logbooks, a path compacted by boots. The lighthouse stores work in its surfaces. When people later preserve old lighthouses, they often preserve more than a tower. They preserve a pattern of care. A Fresnel lens in a museum or restored lantern room is not only glass, it is evidence of engineering, shipping, labor, and routine. A keeper's dwelling is not only a quaint house, it is the domestic side of public safety. A logbook is not only handwriting, it is a sequence of nights held in ink. This makes the lighthouse a good subject for sleep because it combines structure with calm. There is always another step, but it is a known step. There is always another object, but it belongs somewhere. There is always another hour, but the light has a reason to be there. Before we let morning arrive, spend one more quiet moment with the people offshore who depended on all of this. A navigator did not look at a lighthouse in isolation. The light was part of a conversation with the chart, the compass, the coast, and the vessel's own movement. If the ship saw the light on one bearing, then later on another, that change could help confirm position. If two known lights lined up in a certain way or opened apart from each other, that could also tell a careful navigator something useful. The lighthouse did not do the thinking for the crew, but it gave the crew a known point from which thinking could begin. In daylight, a tower could serve as a day mark. Its shape, paint, height, stripes, color, roof, or location could help people recognize it from the water before the lamp was needed. A lighthouse might therefore have two identities. By day, it was a visible structure on the coast. By night, it was a light with a character. In fog, it might become a sound. The same station could speak in different ways depending on what the weather allowed. That is another reason the tower's appearance mattered. Paint was not only decorative. A white tower, a dark lantern, a banded pattern, or a shape visible against land could help distinguish one aid to navigation from another. Some towers became famous for their appearance, but even modest markings could have practical value. The mariner needed recognition, not romance. From inside the station, this meant that outside maintenance mattered too. Paint protected surfaces from weather and helped preserve visibility. Ironwork needed attention. Gallery rails had to remain sound. Doors and windows had to close properly. Roofs had to shed water. Paths had to remain usable. A lighthouse keeper's work could move from the most delicate glass to the roughest exterior surface in the same day. This range is part of the charm of the subject. 1 hour might involve a clean cloth on a lens. Another might involve a brush, a hinge, a shutter, a fuel can, a broom, a bucket, or a spade. The lighthouse asks for both precision and plain labor. There is also the question of inspection. Many lighthouse systems used official instructions and periodic inspection. because a public signal cannot depend only on private intention. An inspector might examine the condition of the apparatus, the records, the supplies, the dwelling, and the keeper's conduct. This was not only bureaucracy, it was another layer of reliability. A good station had to be ready not just for tonight. The keeper, then, worked within trust and oversight. The keeper was trusted to notice the details that no distant office could see at midnight. The system in turn provided rules, equipment, charts, supply chains, repairs, and standards. The light at the top of the tower was the visible end of a much larger arrangement. Think of that arrangement quietly. Someone made the glass, someone shaped the metal, someone built the tower, someone wrote the instructions, someone delivered the fuel. Someone printed the chart, someone kept the watch, someone at sea looked for the signal. The beam crossed the water because many separate kinds of work met in one place. Even the word reliability becomes physical here. Reliability is not an idea floating above the tower. It is fuel in the store, clean glass in the lantern, a maintained stair, a correct chart, a working lamp, a written log, and a keeper awake when the coast is dark. By the late age of many staffed lights, automation slowly changed that human pattern. Some keepers left stations that had held families and routines for generations. Some old lenses were removed, protected, displayed, or replaced by smaller modern optics. Some towers stayed active as aids to navigation. Others became historic places. The work changed, but the meaning did not vanish. A small modern beacon may not have the romance of a great lens, but it still has a job. It still marks a place. It still helps someone understand water and land at night. The old keeper's routine teaches us to respect the signal, even when the technology has become quieter, smaller, and less visible. So, when we look at the lighthouse in the final image, on its cliff above the dark sea, we can let all the layers remain present without naming them again. The glass, the lamp, the lens, the chart, the fog signal, the painted tower, the logbook, the stairs, the family dwelling, the supply room, the inspector's notes, the mariner's count of flashes, and the keeper's hand on the rail all belong to the same calm world. The light is simple, only after many things have been made ready. Now, as the long night leans toward morning, the added details settle into the same simple promise. The lamp is not magic. The lens is not magic. The tower is not magic. The keeper is not a legend. The lighthouse works because material, design, attention, and repetition meet in one place. Sand became glass. Metal became frames and tools. Fuel became flame. Stone or brick became height. Ink became records. Routine became trust. And trust, in the dark, became a point of light. Sunrise arrived. Record completed. Glass cleaned. Station readied. If we wanted to explain the lighthouse to someone in only a few objects, we could place them on a table in the keeper's house. A small lamp chimney, clear and fragile. A folded cloth, ordinary and necessary. A length of wick, soft before it becomes flame. A brass tool, worn from use. A page from the logbook, filled with weather and time. A chart showing the coast, with the light marked in its place. And perhaps a small prism of glass, catching morning in its edges. None of these objects is dramatic by itself. Together, they tell the story. The chimney says that flame needs air and protection. The cloth says that cleanliness is part of brightness. The wick says that even a signal seen miles away can depend on a small strip of material burning evenly. The tool says that maintenance is performed by hand. The logbook says that responsibility should be recorded. The chart says the light has meaning because mariners know where to expect it. The prism says that glass can be shaped into guidance. This is the quiet lesson of the station. Useful things are often made from simple tasks repeated well. The keeper does not need to feel inspired every evening. Inspiration is not the point. The work has to be done on clear nights, wet nights, cold nights, foggy nights, tired nights, and ordinary nights where nothing seems likely to happen. Especially then, a neglected ordinary night is still a neglected night. The coast will not announce which vessel needs the light most. It may be a large ship far out, or a fishing boat close enough to know the local water, or a small craft coming home later than expected. The keeper cannot choose to serve only the dramatic cases. The light is shown for all of them. There is patience in that. The lighthouse does not ask who is watching. It simply keeps its appointment with darkness. At sunset, the appointment begins. At sunrise, the appointment ends. Between them, the keeper holds the hours together. This is also why the final silence of the video should feel earned. When the narration stops, the lighthouse will not feel empty. The viewer will already know the lamp, the lens, the panes, the logbook, the stairs, and the keeper's repeated care. The remaining sound of sea and wind will not be filler. It will be the same station continuing after words are no longer needed. The beam can move without explanation. The water can breathe against the rocks. The tower can stand in darkness. The last minutes can belong to the place itself. That is the lighthouse night, not as a legend, but as a sequence of care. For a little while, before the next evening's preparation begins, the lighthouse is only a quiet building at the edge of the water. It holds its stairs. It holds its lamp. It holds its lens. It holds its keeper's room and its logbook. It holds the memory of a beam that crossed the dark. And when evening comes again, the same plain promise will begin once more. The lamp will make the light. The lens will organize it. The tower will lift it. And the keeper, by cleaning, trimming, watching, and writing, will keep it trustworthy.